Hey guys, I've seen a lot of debate online about percent versus distance for your battery, so I thought I'd talk about it. So if you're interested, stay tuned. So I think this debate has gone on ever since EV cars have come out, and I think personally that is really a preference thing on which way you go. So my opinion is probably going to be the unpopular opinion, but I prefer distance over percent. And so I'm going to explain both sides and why I prefer distance over percent. So what I hear from the percent lovers is that looking at it in distance is kind of an ancient way of looking at it, and it's related to the ICE cars. Basically, when we have gallons when we fill up our car, so basically you get 30 miles per gallon, and so that's where the distance and ICE is kind of correlated, and it's kind of old. And so basically, when you look at your tank, you're really looking at it in, 3/4, half, a quarter left. And so that's where you can basically, the percent people basically say that's where percentage is basically the same as what you're, if you're driving a gas car, it's the same thing, half, quarter, whatever. And so that's how they rationalize using percentage over distance. But if you think about it, having your tank, you don't really, you can look at it in like 3/4, half, but that's not really going to tell you how far you have to go. And so for me, my personal experience is, since you obviously you're going to be driving the same car for quite a while, so you're going to have, you're going to go through a bunch of tanks in the beginning. You're going to know based on your personal preferences how far you can go on one tank. And so basically that's kind of, for me, that's the gauge of how far I can go. It's not really 3/4 and a half. Oh, I need to get gas now. It's really, for me, I look at it as I can go about this far distance on a tank. So we'll say 350 miles on a tank. And basically the only way you're really going to know with your tank how far, like when you need to get gas, is either you look at your trip meter, which is what I do. I would always reset my trip meter every time I got gas, so it would be 0. That way I can get that range and I know how far I can go. Or if your gas light comes on, a lot of old ICE cars would be like a 2 or 3 gallon fuel light would come on, so you know, hey, I'm getting low on gas, you need to get gas. And then you can base that basically on how many miles per gallon you get. So if you say 30, that would be like 60 or 90 miles that you have left in your tank before you need to get gas. And so that's kind of where this whole thing came in from, where percent is better than distance. But yeah, I'm not so sure. So using your gas tank at 3/4, a half for percentage is sort of there, but it's sort of not, because that's assuming you have no range anxiety, because there's gas stations on every corner. So if you kind of get low, or you get, kind of worried that you might run out of gas, you can go get gas at the, nearest gas station a mile away. Well, obviously with EV cars, we can't do that because there's not superchargers or level 2 chargers on every corner, and it takes way longer than 5 minutes. So you kind of have to plan ahead for that if you're going to use, percentage over distance. Percentage lovers are also going to argue that the distance calculation that you see, so basically the number, the range you see in your car, isn't accurate, which is true, because basically it's an algorithm that Tesla runs based on certain specific parameters, and that doesn't account your specific driving habits. So if you're, the kind of guy or girl that likes spirited driving, well, yeah, of course, then your distance number is not going to be correct, because you're using way more energy to round the car all the time. And so, that's not going to be accurate. And that's going to be corroborated with basically the energy graph that you're going to see going like this if you're romping it. And so that's kind of the argument for percentage as well, if you romp it everywhere and don't drive like a normal person. And I get it. If you're the kind of person that likes to drive the car like you stole it, then go for it. Have fun and use the percentage option, because that's probably going to be the more worth it option for you. But what percentage owners don't mention is that, yeah, you can drive around with percentage, but that's assuming that you don't have any range anxiety. So I would think most of these people that like percentage have home chargers, and they can charge at home every night. And so basically, let's just say that, they have a short commute to work, so it doesn't really matter. Percentage is kind of a moot point, because you're going to drive to work, use a couple percent, drive back home, do your errands, whatever, and you're not driving anywhere near your total range. So it doesn't really matter, how much mileage you use, because that you have plenty of range to drive around. You get home, you plug it in at night, you start all over again with a full battery, or 90%. So why this particularly doesn't work for me is partly probably because I have a mid-range, which is 260. And when you charge it to 90%, that's 230. And so basically my range for me is kind of limited a little bit. And I get free charging at work as well. So basically I try and use that as almost my main charger rather than charging at home, because obviously it's free. And so, you know, you can almost think of it as like, I don't have a home charger. And so everyone who lives in apartments or condos where they can't charge at home, this is going to be the exact same for them as well, because they can't just go home at night and plug in their plug in their car to their charger whenever they want and wake up with a full battery. So for my daily commute, sure, I could use percentage, but it's the weekends that really, the distance calculation makes way more sense for me than using percent. So let me give you an example. So basically on Fridays, I will charge to 90%, so 230. I'll drive home. That's about 10 miles away, so that's 220. And then basically we have the weekend to do whatever. So usually on Saturdays, we'll go somewhere, SF, San Jose, somewhere far away. So basically those types of trips are about 80 to 90 miles round trip. And so if we take into account phantom drain and all that stuff, we'll just say 100 miles. So probably just about half of my battery is going to be gone on Saturday when we do our little activities. And then the part that really kind of messes me up and why I like using distance more than percent is because on Sundays I do side business stuff. And so those jobs basically take me all over the Bay Area. And so a lot of times there's a lot of distance involved as well. So a lot of times those will be in San Jose or Palo Alto, somewhere that's far away. So basically it's going to be another 80, 90, 100 miles that I need to drive to get to this location to do these side business jobs. And so if you're doing the math with me, 220 minus almost 100 for our Saturday activities, that's already like, 120 around that area, 110. And so then on Sunday, if I'm driving another about 100 miles, that's going to leave me with very little wiggle room. 20 miles, and then that's not including phantom drain. That's not including, conditions and things like that, or if I want to romp it really hard. And so that's where for me, distance really makes a big difference, because if I'm looking at percent, I'm going to have no idea once I drive that, 100 miles on our Saturday for our little activities. It's just going to tell me percentage. Okay, you have like 50 or 40% of your battery. That doesn't tell me anything. I don't know how many miles that is, to see if I can get to my job on Sunday or not without having to charge. So sure, I could do calculations, which would be like, for me personally, my driving habits, I get about 4 to 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour, but then I have to do a ton of math. So, okay, there's that. What's 1 kilowatt hour divided by a 62 kilowatt hour battery? Got to do that math to try and figure out, oh, okay, now I have this much in percentage. That's just too much math. So it's just way easier for me to look at distance, where I can see, okay, I've got about 100 miles left. My task is, my job is going to be about 100 miles. That's way too close for me. I should probably get, charged somewhere, maybe a supercharger, or maybe I'll just charge at home a little bit if I need to. But for me personally, I try and, since I do get the free charging at work, I try and do that. And there's some chargers that are just down the street from our house that I can get free charging too. So I try and get as much free charging as I can, obviously, because then I don't have to pay for it. And so basically, if I have distance, I know, oh, you know what? I have 120 miles left. I'm going to be driving about 100. I'm going to need more energy before I do my Sunday job, or else I'm going to be stuck in the water somewhere. And so that's where distance for me makes a huge difference compared to percent. The percent lovers are going to argue that basically, distance is not going to be accurate because it's based on a specific algorithm that Tesla does, that, they calculate, which is true. But like I mentioned, if you drive normal like me, in my experience, the distance calculation is pretty accurate, where it's not like, I drove 50 miles, but on the screen it tells me that I lost like 70 miles worth of charge. So for me, if I drive 50 miles, it's about 50 or maybe like 55. And so basically it all depends on how you drive. So in my personal experience, distance works fine for me, and it's pretty accurate from, what shows on the screen. And if I'm in a pinch or I misjudge my range calculation, then I can just easily supercharge somewhere at the closest supercharger station, or maybe I can find a level 2 charger. I can get a little bit of charge and hang out and maybe eat lunch or something. So I have enough energy to get home, and then I can charge at home or, whatever the next day at work. I'm running a poll on Twitter right now to see what preferences people on Twitter prefer, and I'm actually kind of surprised at the results. Right now, there's more people that prefer distance over percent. And so from doing all this research online and seeing people's preferences from other forums, there's a lot of people that prefer percentage over distance. So it's kind of cool that on this Twitter poll, more people are, on, I guess, my side with the distance than the percent. And so it's kind of surprising because I thought it was actually going to be the other way around. And of course, I'll show you the poll once it's finished. Just something I thought was kind of cool and kind of surprising. So hopefully this was helpful for you to understand why I personally prefer distance over percent. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer distance or do you prefer percent? And why? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.